The United States is pursuing what might be the largest territorial acquisition since Alaska, and most Americans have no idea it's happening. We're talking about Greenland, 836,000 square miles of ice that could determine who controls the 21st century. This isn't about real estate. It's about survival in a new Arctic arms race. And China is already winning. When President Trump first suggested buying Greenland in 2019, the world laughed. Denmark called it absurd. Greenland's leaders were offended. The media treated it as another reality TV moment from an unconventional president. But here's what nobody told you. The United States has tried to purchase Greenland 3 separate times. In 1867, the same year, we bought Alaska. Again in 1946, offering $100 million in gold. And most recently, in 2019. Why would America obsess over an island that's 80% covered in ice, with a population smaller than a mid-sized American town? To understand what's really happening, we need to recognize something crucial. Greenland sits at the exact center of a perfect storm: military strategy, resource scarcity, climate change, and great power competition, all converging on one frozen island. The Arctic ice is melting faster than scientists predicted. And beneath that ice lies something that has Pentagon generals, Chinese strategists, and Wall Street investors all staring at the same map. This is the story of why the world's most powerful nation wants a giant ice sheet, and why you should care. On the surface, this seems straightforward. America wants Greenland for strategic military positioning. It's close to Russia, it has an Air Force base, and controlling it would enhance North American defense. That's the sanitized version you'll read in most news articles. But that explanation misses 3/4 of the story, and the most important parts. Section B. The real drivers. Factor 1. The new geography of power. Here's where it gets interesting. Climate change is literally redrawing the map. By 2050, the Arctic Ocean will be ice-free during summer months. This opens shipping routes that slash 40% off the distance between Asia and Europe, routes that bypass the Suez Canal entirely. We're talking about $7 trillion in annual trade potentially flowing through Arctic waters. Greenland sits directly adjacent to these routes. Whoever controls Greenland controls the toll booth to the Arctic Superhighway. But there's a military dimension that's even more critical. Greenland is positioned between the GIUK Gap, that's Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom. This maritime choke point is where NATO has traditionally monitored Russian submarines leaving their northern bases. Russia has rebuilt its northern fleet to Soviet-era strength, over 40 submarines and a new generation of nuclear-powered icebreakers. China, despite having no Arctic territory, has declared itself a near-Arctic state and deployed its own icebreaker fleet. Thule Air Base in northern Greenland houses the U.S. military's northernmost deep-water port and a sophisticated ballistic missile early warning system. It's 3,000 miles closer to Moscow than bases in the continental U.S. In a hypersonic missile era where reaction time is measured in minutes, that geography is priceless. You might be wondering, doesn't Denmark technically own Greenland? Officially, yes, but Greenland has home rule and controls its own resources. Denmark handles foreign policy and defense, but that arrangement is increasingly fragile. Factor 2. The rare earth revolution. Now follow the money, because this is where American anxiety turns into genuine alarm. Greenland holds an estimated 38.5 million tons of rare earth elements. These aren't luxury items. They're the foundation of modern technology. Every smartphone, electric vehicle, wind turbine, fighter jet, and guided missile depends on rare earths. Here's the problem. China currently processes over 90% of the world's rare earth elements. They've already weaponized this dominance. In 2010, China cut rare earth exports to Japan during a territorial dispute, crippling Japanese manufacturing overnight. The Pentagon knows that in any future conflict with China, America's supply of rare earths could be severed within days. Every precision weapon, every drone, every advanced radar system would face immediate shortages. Greenland also contains vast deposits of uranium, zinc, lead, and gold. But the crown jewel might be something most people have never heard of: cryolite, a mineral once found only in Greenland and essential for aluminum production. American companies have already invested hundreds of millions in Greenland mining projects, but so have Chinese firms, and that's what's keeping Washington up at night. In 2016, a Chinese company attempted to purchase an abandoned naval base in Greenland. Denmark and the U.S. intervened to block it. In 2018, China offered to finance 3 new airports in Greenland. Again, the U.S. pressured Denmark to fund them instead, which Denmark did, despite the $600 million price tag they didn't want to pay. The message was clear: America will not tolerate Chinese infrastructure in Greenland. Factor 3. The melting Cold War. This isn't new territory, literally. We need to go back to understand the historical momentum driving current policy. During World War II, the United States occupied Greenland to prevent Nazi Germany from establishing bases there. After the war, America made its first serious purchase offer in 1946, seeing Greenland as essential to containing the Soviet Union. The Thule Air Base was established in 1951, displacing local Inuit populations, a historical wound that still shapes Greenlandic attitudes toward foreign powers today. But here's what's different now. Climate change has turned a frozen wasteland into accessible territory. The same ice sheet that made Greenland strategically important but practically unusable is now melting at record rates. American military strategists are operating from a doctrine established in 2019. The Arctic is now a theater of great power competition, equivalent to the Middle East or South China Sea. Russia has built 475 military sites in its Arctic region since 2014. China is investing billions in Arctic research and infrastructure. The United States, despite being an Arctic nation through Alaska, has exactly 2 heavy icebreakers. Russia has over 40. That imbalance explains why the Pentagon views Greenland as critical. It's not just about one island. It's about maintaining American credibility as an Arctic power. Factor 4. Future consequences. So what's actually at stake here? Let's play this forward. Scenario 1. Greenland maintains its current relationship with Denmark, but accepts increasing American military presence. This is the status quo, and it's unstable because Greenland's population of 57,000 increasingly wants full independence. Scenario 2. Greenland achieves independence but lacks the economic foundation to resist Chinese investment. Beijing offers infrastructure funding, resource extraction partnerships, and diplomatic support. Greenland becomes economically tied to China, putting Chinese influence 800 miles from Canada and establishing Beijing's first foothold in the Western Hemisphere. This is the nightmare scenario for Washington. Scenario 3. The United States makes Greenland an offer it can't refuse, not through purchase, but through a defense and economic partnership so comprehensive that Greenland chooses American alignment over Chinese money. Each scenario has profound implications. If China gains significant influence in Greenland, NATO's northern flank collapses. If the U.S. increases its military footprint without local support, it creates resentment that China can exploit. If Greenland achieves independence without a strong economy, it becomes vulnerable to exactly the kind of debt-trap diplomacy China has deployed across Africa and Asia. Here's why this matters to you, sitting in Texas or Ohio or wherever you're watching this. The battle for Greenland is really about who sets the rules for the 21st century. If China secures Arctic resources and shipping routes, American technological dominance faces an existential threat. Your iPhone, your car, your national defense all depend on materials that would be controlled by a strategic rival. The opening of Arctic shipping lanes will shift global trade patterns that have existed for 500 years. If Asian goods flow to Europe through the Arctic instead of Suez, American ports lose relevance. Economic power shifts north, and the United States needs a seat at that table. This is also about climate change, creating entirely new forms of geopolitical competition. As the planet warms, previously frozen regions become contested territory. Greenland is just the beginning. Now, some analysts argue this is all overblown. They point out that Greenland's population wants independence, not American ownership. That any overt purchase attempt would backfire diplomatically and push Greenlanders toward closer ties with Europe, or even China. Critics also note that rare earth deposits are meaningless without processing facilities, which take decades to build. That China's Arctic ambitions are mostly economic, not military. That the United States is creating a threat narrative to justify increased defense spending. These aren't wrong, they're incomplete. Yes, Greenland's people deserve self-determination. But self-determination in a world where China offers predatory loans and the Arctic becomes militarized isn't really freedom. It's choosing which great power to depend on. The question isn't whether America should control Greenland. It's whether America can offer a partnership that respects Greenlandic autonomy while preventing Chinese strategic encirclement. Here's the bottom line. Greenland isn't about ice. It's about the future geography of power in a warming world. The United States wants Greenland because whoever controls the Arctic controls critical shipping lanes, rare earth elements, and military positioning that will define great power competition for the next century. China knows this, Russia knows this, and now you know this. The real question isn't why America wants Greenland, it's whether America can secure its interests without repeating the imperial playbooks of the past, because the people of Greenland are watching. And so is the rest of the world. This is the new great game, played not in Central Asia, but in the frozen north. And the stakes have never been higher. If this changed how you see global power, hit subscribe, because next, we're exposing why China is building cities in the middle of nowhere, and what that means for the